Welcome back to another episode of How Do Artists Make Money? The show where we try to answer the age-old question, how do artists make money? Today I'm joined by Scott Christian Sava, who is an illustrator and storyteller whose career spans over 30 years. So he has a really unique perspective on the opportunities available to artists today using social media. Let's get into the conversation. Scott, thanks for joining me. Let's start with the basics. How would you describe yourself professionally?
I think professionally, the word chameleon kind of comes to mind, jack of all trades, but I think more chameleon. I found that when I started off in high school, going into college, all I wanted to do was be the artist on Spider-Man. I wanted to be a comic book artist. In my junior year of college, I got an internship at Sega of America doing video games. And I was doing learning 16-bit animation and in 1990. And I think that was the start of, well, along the way until I get to do what I want to do, I'll try this. And 16-bit animation became game design for Atari games, for coin-op games, which became I became an animator for the Casper films and then Power Rangers. And then I went back to being a producer on video games. And then I wrote comic books and graphic novels. And then I got to do my Spider-Man when in my 30s. And then I got to write more graphic novels. I did web comics. I wrote and directed a film. And now I'm an author and I'm doing YouTube stuff. So I think over the last 30 years, I've learned to, who was it, Bruce Lee, who said, be like water. And I've learned to kind of navigate when my career hits a point where things they're stalling, they're not going well. You find where's the water going? Where's my career path going? And just kind of find that. So I've always been an artist. I think I've added storyteller to that sometimes, but being a chameleon and being able to adjust along the way, I think has been my saving grace.
So you mentioned that your very first internship, your thought was, I'll do this for now until I get where I think I should be. Do you still feel that way? Like 30 years in?
Yeah. I remember from my late teens until when I was 31, I think it was 31 when I got my Spider-Man gig, I would remember telling potential clients, I'll take this job, and it was a good paying job with salaries in it. But if I get that call from Marvel Comics to do Spider, because every year I would go to the comic conventions with a new portfolio and get rejected year after year after year. But if that dream job comes, I'm leaving. And it was a stupid thing to do. It was childish, but I felt I needed to let them know that my true heart was Spider-Man. And I don't do that. Ever since I did Spider-Man, I don't do that anymore. And so I think I kind of had that moment where, okay, I did it. And now everything after that has been, let's see where the wind takes us.
Yeah, I had a similar path where I did features first right out of school. And then I guess it kind of like got it out of my system. And then when I leapt to social media stuff, I'm like, okay, I don't need to do features really. I can just feel my way through now.
There's no more unfulfilled destiny,
It's kind of nice to get it out. Get it out early.
Not everybody gets to.
Yeah, agreed. And because I think there's probably an element of if you keep chasing and chasing and chasing and then finally get there, it might not be what you think it is.
Yeah.
So what kind of work are you doing now that's producing income?
I know we joked about this when you originally asked me and I said, income, what income? But I have a family. I've got 2 kids and a house and there is the need for artists to bring in income. And it's always come in various ways. I think the most stable, though not most lucrative, has been social media. It's been YouTube. YouTube has been, it started off really fantastic and then kind of tapered down. But I think YouTube is the best way for me to bring in at least enough to cover the house payments and insurance and whatnot consistently. And that's been good. But really, over the last 5 years, it has been a series of, hey, I got hired to write a movie script or direct a film, and the film doesn't happen, but I still got paid. Or, I get a big commission or to do a painting or something along those. I think artists always have to hustle. We always have to take on side projects and whatnot. 1 year, movie posters. I'm sorry, not my art posters just did really well. We did one painting called The Gothic Vampire, and it was just, you make art and you don't know what's going to hit and what's not. And one poster just made a whole year's salary for us. And it was fantastic. And you just don't know. And I did several posters after that did nothing. And I thought, oh, this one's going to be even better. And none of them did. And finally, right now, it is my book. I've got a book coming out in 6 weeks. And my publisher gave me a wonderful advance, and I am marketing the crap out of it, trying to see if it can do well. And that is a completely new experience for me. So I don't know what to expect, but I'm excited. But there's so many ways, and I still haven't tried Patreon, which is, I know, something you've encouraged me to look into. But
I think you should. Let's give you the opportunity to promote the book. Tell us a bit about what's it called and what's it about?
It's called Becoming an Artist. This is a dummy copy. In other words, it's just a mock-up cover on someone else's book. But essentially, my publisher, the editor, Allison, had reached out to me saying, I love what you're talking about on your channel. I talk about art, I answer questions, and I try to encourage people to make art and not worry about the imperfections, to not worry about the mistakes, to just enjoy the process of making art. And they thought that would make a good book. And they encouraged me. I mean, they convinced me to write a book, and I did. And it was such a fun experience taking all of the stuff I talk about on my channel. Because I talk about, over the years, people have said, oh, you're the next Bob Ross. You're the next Bob Ross. And I love that. But I also kind of wanted to be a little bit of Mr. Rogers too. And so I've been talking a lot about kindness and empathy and how to be a good person and how to be a good human being. And so I wanted the book to reflect that too, and it does. And on top of that, my editor thought it would be nice to have artwork in it. And so they flew me out to New York, and I got to spend a week or so just walking around sketching. And so it's filled with a bunch of sketchbook sketches of people, places, and things. So it's a combination of an art book and talking about art.
You mentioned how YouTube is kind of a constant source of income, and then how social media led to, it initiated this book. So I'm curious, having started in the 90s with the introduction of digital and the internet, and then now focusing on social media, what's your quick take on comparing those two eras of being an artist? Does it feel more difficult, more complicated? Is it more saturated now? What's your take on that?
It's kind of both, because when I was an illustration major, and so we learned about Norman Rockwell and J.C. Leyendecker and Maxwell Parrish and all of the great illustrators, and how there was a time before photography when illustration was how stories were told, magazines, books, et cetera, et cetera. Then photography kind of came in and took a chunk of that away from illustrators. And so illustrators had to fight harder to survive. Just as I was graduating, Photoshop came out. And from that point on, illustration really took a back seat. And I remember just not being able to find my place as an illustrator. It was really difficult. I got to do comic book covers. I got to do magazine covers, but it was it was a very small percentage were being illustrated. Everything was just, and you look at movie posters now. You know, we just lost Drew Struzan the other day, the greatest movie poster illustrator. And I remember thinking I would love to do a movie poster, but everything is 99% of them are photographs. And it's so the need for art has diminished so much since I graduated college in 1991. That said, YouTube and social media has allowed people to talk about anything. I mean, I have friends who talk about mushroom foraging. And I mean, it's we can talk about anything and make a career of it. And so on one hand, it kind of went away for 30 years. And on the other hand, I can now talk about art. I can make art. I could draw whatever I want to. And I don't have an art director. I don't have a magazine. I don't have someone telling me what to draw, how to draw it. I don't have to worry about approval. I just draw what I want to draw. And that's enough. People follow me because they like what I draw. They like what I talk about. They like me for me. And so I think the upside is right now I'm able to be myself, authentically myself. I can talk about being diagnosed with autism. I could talk about my book. I could talk about my kids. I could talk about whatever I want to talk about. And people accept that. They accept me. And I think that's something we would have never gotten in the 90s. We would have never gotten in the 1940s. It's with all of the downsides that there are to social media and how we're creating content essentially for free in the hopes for some scraps, so there's the downsides too, but I feel the most authentically me right here in this moment. And I like that.
That makes me think of, so maybe 30 years ago, the art was the product. Like you trade your time to produce the art and the art was the thing. And now you can just turn on a camera, record, feel your way through something, a painting, a drawing. You can fail, you can struggle, you can pivot, and then create a video about it. And then the video about the art is now the product. Do you find that freeing? You can just do whatever you want and find a story after the fact?
Yes and no. And I want to come back to that in a second, but I think, I'll just jump right into that. Having to have a camera in front of me every time I draw is kind of an anchor. It's kind of a ball and chain. Anytime I want to make art, it's like, oh, well, this is content. So there's that separation of I'm not making art, I'm making content sometimes. And I have to struggle with that a lot. And we become the story ourselves. The process becomes the story, not the art. And that in itself, I think, is much more interesting and also much more, I don't want to use the word democratic, but open for people, because it used to be that there were one or two or three amazingly talented artists in a generation that everybody would want to buy their work, and everybody, the gatekeepers would promote those artists. There were also artists that the gatekeepers were friends with or just particularly liked, that they would promote that. And if you weren't the it artist, you just didn't get your work shown. And now I think I never feel like my art is something anybody's going to remember. I feel like I am a talented artist. I feel like I am a good artist, but I am not a once in a generational artist. And, that's a very rare thing. But because I can tell a story about my art, that gives it something more. Because I'm able to, in other words, if you were to look at my art next to a Van Gogh, a Monet, a Frank Frazetta, Norman Rockwell, and I feel like my art, people would just walk right past and they would go and they would see the greats. But if I could put a story to it, there's something interesting there. And I think that's what's been the best benefit for me is maybe my art isn't it, but maybe the story that goes with it is worthwhile. And so I think there's just this weird combination of art and storytelling that we're able to do in this moment that is unique, that wasn't available to artists and illustrators in history.
That's something I've really struggled with, is adding myself into my videos. I've almost held off for 10 years. I don't know what it is. I produce the animation or the visual effects trick and I post it. And sometimes I do a behind the scenes that's very much framed in a tutorial, like a very basic tutorial. But I never insert myself. And I've always noticed that people don't recognize me. People don't, they know my videos, but they don't recognize me. And that's probably because I'm holding back so much on injecting myself.
Well, you're also not in costume. I mean, for me, getting the courage to get in front of the camera, I had to dress up. The glasses and the hat. I mean, I wear glasses when I work, but it's like the vest and everything. And so I think there's a character. I mean, it's still me, but I feel like I needed to dress up to look like an artist. And when I see you in your videos, you're just you. And and there's no gimmick to it. It's just authentically you. And I think that is your strength. Is you're I know I've said this before. You're a magician, and I love that you've been actually doing magician stuff too. But you've always been a wonderful storyteller. You didn't need the costume to get into like I did.
I relate to when you referred to yourself as a chameleon, because I was putting together my 10-year video a couple weeks ago where I shared the best video I made from every year over 10 years, and they're wildly different.
Wow.
I've gotten thousands of comments of people saying, "That's you." That, like, I know all these videos, but I didn't realize it was the same person who made all these.
That's fantastic. And we grow. We mature. Our tastes change. The world changes. We learn. I think that's important to see that growth in ourselves and our work always. I would hate to look back 5, 10, 20, 30 years and just see the same old stuff. I would hate to see that.
You mentioned that YouTube spiked and then plateaued, and then you had a poster that sold really well, and then it didn't hold up following it up with other posters. At that point, because you've been working for a few decades, did you have the wisdom to see that, it's doing well now, but hold on, it might drop? Or did you kind of ride that high and like, this is going to last forever?
No, I panicked. I still panic. I think it's easier when you're just first starting off. You're in your early 20s and you still have the safety net of maybe your family to fall back on and whatnot. But I think when you have kids and you have a house and you have, my age, I'm going to be 57 soon, and I'm thinking about retirement. Yeah, not that I ever plan on not making art, but you still have to start thinking of this stuff, and money becomes more of a problem. It becomes more of a worry, and so every time I think I've figured something out with YouTube and then it changes it up, or I figured something out with the posters and then it changes it up, or every time I just get distraught. I wish I could say I took it all in stride with all of the experience that I've had, but I don't. I get distraught. I break down. I go, I can't do anything right. Why can't I just can I just have one good year? Can I just, and it's just, I just want it to be easy sometimes. And I find that it is a life of an artist is not easy. It's never easy. And I wish it was, but I think looking back on the last 30 years, and I could see all of the ups and downs. I see all of the troubles, but I can't see any time where I would have done it any differently, where I would have chosen a regular path. This is the best life, for all of its ups and downs, mostly downs. It's still the best life.
Yeah. It's a bit of a wonderful curse where when I start comparing myself to other people and I see other people's success and I feel bad and all that, when I start getting those emotions creeping in, I just have to remember that what I'm making is exactly what I'm supposed to make. And there's no other way I can do it. For whatever reason, this is exactly, I'm supposed to be here making these videos with this obsession and I can't stop. To your point about having a family and there being more responsibility and more financial responsibility, yesterday I just signed the paperwork for my life insurance and my disability insurance because I have 2 young kids now. And I was like, it costs this much? Yeah. Okay. I'll work a little harder.
My wife loves to say, you're worth more to me dead. But, the insurance is I'm always worried one of these days, I'm going to slip down the stairs or something accidentally. Thanks, Donna. But, no, it's I think the hardest part for an artist is coming to terms with having to monetize your passion. I think that's the hardest part because you feel like you are selling your soul in so many ways. And you feel like your art now is a burden. And there are days where I just don't want to make art, because I have to turn it into content. And there are days where I just want to make art for myself. But I know if I was going to really do something I was passionate about, it would be something I would want to share. And so there's just this constant battle of wanting to be an artist, but also needing to be a father or a husband or just someone who has a roof over their head. And so I don't know if there is an answer to that other than being born independently wealthy. I don't think, I think that's the constant battle for musicians and writers and dancers and actors.
That makes me think of in storytelling how the best characters are these polar opposite characteristics that clash with each other. And I've always considered mine being suburban dad and wacky artist who's like madly creating in a basement. I have to flip between the two characters.
We're our own buddy cop movie. We're the two opposites in one body. We have to be the responsible human being and parent and husband or wife, and we have to also be the creative devil may care artist. I'm going to try something new. I'm going to be experimental. And we have to be both of those things. And it is very exhausting.
Your operation, is it just you or do you have any team members?
It's me and my wife. Donna has always been, so Donna, my wife, Donna, we've been married 32 years now. She went to San Jose State. I was going to the Academy of Art in San Francisco. And so she was a marketing major and I was art. And we've worked together at various companies and we just work really well together. And when we made Animal Crackers, she did all the books, she wrote all the checks, she handled all the legals, she handled all of that stuff. I was writing, directing, producing, and she was producing as well in that capacity. But we don't step on each other's toes. She doesn't want to do what I'm doing. I don't want to do what she's doing. And so now through all of this and the YouTube stuff, she's handling the website, the marketing, the shipping, answering emails, setting up calls and whatnot, whatever, we need to do. And it works. I think I wouldn't want it to get any bigger. I wouldn't want to have to train anybody I think it's better when stuff is most authentically my voice. I just think it's best. We do have friends of ours who, when we used to go live, they were moderators on our lives, and they're wonderful, and they know my voice and they know how to respond to people during lives and whatnot. And I think that's good. But I think for the most part, it's better if it's just one or two people.
Agreed. Yeah, I really intentionally want to keep things lean. I just don't want the stress of supporting anyone.
Yeah.
Providing a job that might go away at some point.
Yeah.
You mentioned selling the posters of your artwork. What do you do to support that? Do you advertise that, or is it all, do you let people find that?
I still find that the YouTube shorts are advertisement. At least that's how I consider them. So I consider me doing a lot of advertisement in that way. I've never paid for advertisement. This is just me promoting it across my channels. But the one poster that I think it did the most, we sold about 8,000 copies. So 8,000 posters. And when you look at that across 4 million followers, it doesn't really seem like a lot. But if you're getting $10 to $15 a poster, it's a good amount of money. And so I think there had to have been that letting down my expectations, because when you think of how many followers you have, it's so hard to say, well, why don't I have 100,000 sales? Why don't I have 1%, 40,000 sales would be 1% of my followers. Why can't I get 1% of the people to buy this poster? Is it not a good poster? But I just don't think that's how. So I'm learning that social media and your follower count, it's so misleading. Just someone clicking that subscribe button is not somebody who is a fan. They're just someone who said, I like that video. I think I'll stick around for more. But they're not necessarily someone who's going to be a fan. And that number, and I think there's been quite a few people talking about it, but I think that number is usually just in the thousands, in the few thousands. If you can get that many people to just support you and who really want to continue to, I guess, be in your world in that way, that's enough. And I think that's just such a hard thing in the world of celebrity and stats and numbers and follower count, because your follower count is currency, especially in like Hollywood. People look and they see how many followers you have, and they use that to say, okay, well, we're going to give this person a movie deal or a book deal or whatever it might be. But it really doesn't translate in the way that I think it should. So I'm really happy with the 8,000 sales we got on that one poster. And it did it. It supported us. And that was like a really good year for us. And that was enough.
Do you have your posters integrated as a shop on YouTube?
No, we're on Wix, which for some reason is not on YouTube. So I can't add my store, my Wix store, on YouTube. So we had another partner that we tried, and we're still with them. I forgot their name, but they did some stickers and mouse pads and T-shirts and stuff like that. But honestly, yeah, I try to just direct people to go to, my website, and there you can buy not only the posters, but I put up original art for sale. I try to put my art up as cheaply as possible, like $25. Here's a little painting, because I think it's great to make art available to everybody, regardless of their income.
I would push a little bit to say set up an alternate shop that you can put a shopping shelf under all your videos, because you can tag those in shorts now. And
really,
where my mind has been the last year is how do I take advantage of all of these views? So while I'm sleeping and my YouTube channel gets, a few 100,000 views, can every one of those views advertise a product or a course or something. So yeah, if you had your posters for sale and it's a little thumbnail on every short, that could do something. So I'm just gonna throw that out there to look into.
Yeah, we're gonna look into that. That's a great idea. So just like something just set up just for the shorts, just for marketing.
Yeah, I think like Fourth Wall and Shopify integrate really well.
Okay. Yeah, I saw those. I don't know why Wix, because we have all of our websites set up with Wix, and I wish they would.
I'd say it's totally worth it. Do you have any surprising income sources that might not be obvious?
I've had surprising income sources that came out of left field, but none that would be great advice for people. Some of them were I've sold other people's artwork. In other words, whether I'd traded away for artwork or had purchased other people's art when I had a little bit of money, and then that wound up becoming very valuable. But I just remember, making like $20,000, $30,000 in like a single sale because I had some artwork that I was just sitting in a drawer and somebody wanted it and they paid me like a lot of money for it. But I wouldn't say, no, I wish I had other super secret stuff, but I promise you I don't.
Do you do conventions or shows?
I don't anymore. I used to when I was doing my webcomic. I used to love doing that. I loved the idea of doing it. Now that I realize all of my panic attacks were because I was overstimulated because of autism, I think I'd be a little bit more hesitant to do it. But I think I'd still like to. I'm gonna learn what it's like by going. I'm going to be doing some book signings, so we'll see. We'll try out in book signing. But I think I'd love to do. Like, I don't know if I would. Have you done VidCon?
No. And I think it's because I mentioned I'm not recognizable in any way. So I see no value in doing that.
Yeah. No one's invited, but I look and it's funny. I look and I see mutuals, as we call them. I see mutuals going to these things and they look like they're having such a wonderful time. And I know I wouldn't. I know I would not have, I'm not a, hey, let's go out and hang out. And I don't have that social energy. I don't have that battery for that. It's draining to me. And so I know I think I want to do stuff like that. I want to go to conventions. But I don't know if I would want to do them consistently and maybe just as an experiment.
Especially when you said you currently have that kind of safety net of YouTube income coming in. So yeah, why overextend yourself when you don't need to? What's something in like the last few years, what's like a big mistake you made or a wrong turn that you wish you would have done differently?
I think the thing that I wish I would have done a little differently, and I don't know if it was available to me, but I think I would have done more long form. YouTube and TikTok really pushed the shorts. And when YouTube was kind of bringing us over and giving us gifts and giving us bonuses and everything to say, hey, TikTok people, come on over here and do this. I really, really spent a lot of time making shorts. And when I finally got around to doing long form, they just didn't hit. And I think I find shorts the low hanging fruit, but they just don't pay very well. And so they're like the marketing, they're like the commercials, whereas I think the long form is the content. And I've just not really embraced long form. Like I look at Sam Does Art. He does pretty much exclusively long form, and then he'll do shorts as his kind of marketing. And he has about the same followers as me, but he's just worked out that formula for how to do long form. He knows his audience knows the content, and it's a really wonderful thing to see. And I wish I would have embraced that a little more. I think I just, because things were successful on TikTok, and then, YouTube Shorts kind of pulled me over, I just felt like, okay, this is my place. This is my niche. And I think that's the one thing I wish I would have. And I've tried still a few times, but I just haven't figured out long form.
I'm in the exact same position, and I think I've officially thrown in the towel on long form videos on my main channel. I just don't think they fit. I don't have the energy for them. I don't know how to structure them or have the time to do them. I'm so obsessed with making 5-second videos that I think that's best where my energy is. And admittedly, doing this podcast is my way of doing long form that works for me.
Yeah.
It's almost real time. And then I just do a little bit of editing and there we go. Versus spending weeks on a storytelling project.
It's a lot of work for the long form and I was about to say for very little payoff, but it depends on if you could find your audience. But I think the thing that has really intrigued me about the short form, especially when it was, now the limit's 3 minutes and I'm going right to 2 minutes and 58 seconds now. I'm taking my time a little more. But when I first started doing shorts, that 1 minute time limit was such a great teacher of storytelling. How do I tell a story beginning, middle, and end in under a minute? It was such a great experiment. It was such great practice that I was really enthralled with the idea of, okay, I've got the story I want to tell. How do I do this in a minute? And the editing and cutting out the fat and, okay, this isn't important. Okay. And getting all of that. And so I think we find the art form in the limitations. And so I do appreciate the limitations of the vertical short form format. I haven't found that same challenge for the long form.
I typically end asking, what is your biggest goal for the future and how are you getting there? But I'm guessing your focus is probably all on the book right now and the book launch.
Yeah. It's funny because I love to, I'm just finishing up. Just finished little mini album cover number 96. I'm doing 100 mini album covers. So I love to give myself challenges. I love to have long-term goals. That said, I've got 6 weeks until my book comes out. And then after that, I just had a meeting with my publisher yesterday and they said, okay, November 26th, which is the day after my book comes out, they said, that's when the real work starts. And I went, what? No, I've been working, like getting ready. I've been doing all the marketing. They said, no. The book publishing is a long-term thing. It's the long game. They have people who published one book 20 years ago and they're still marketing it and they're still receiving income from it. And the book is still selling. I don't know if I have that capacity to keep talking about the same thing for that long. I want to keep creating. I think there's just this need for me to either write another book, make another movie, continue to make shorts, continue to make art, posters, whatever it might be. But I definitely want to keep creating more future goals for myself and to keep creating stuff. So I don't want it to stop at the book and have that be it. If it sells 1 million copies, I think I'm still going to want to keep making art, telling stories, getting out there, making videos, all of that stuff.
Well, on that note, maybe you should get the YouTube shelf worked out so that you can have your book prominently displayed on every single video you've ever made on YouTube and let the videos do the advertising work for you.
Yeah. I think I will. I think I always see, whether it be me doing Spider-Man or me making animal crackers or writing this book, I think I always see these as little moments of my life. And I like to kind of encapsulate them and then move on. It's funny, I really don't look back on Spider-Man or Animal Crackers or the Dreamland Chronicles or any of my other stories that I've done on my day-to-days. And I think I kind of do put them on a shelf and go, I did that. What's next? And I think that's, my wife and I are constantly having this discussion of being thankful for what we've done and what we've accomplished and the opportunities that we've been given, but also constantly looking forward to what's next. And I think as you start to look towards old age, you start to say, what will I be doing when I'm 60, 70, 80, 90? Will I still be saying what's next? Or will I start spending my time looking back on all of the accomplishments and whatnot? So I don't know when that starts and when that ends, but for now I'm still looking forward. And I think I'll be happy to take becoming an artist, put it on a shelf and go, what's next?
That's a really good positive note to end on. Scott, thanks for talking to me.
Thanks for having me.
I hope the book launch goes wonderfully.
Thank you.
Best of
Thank you. I
luck.
can't wait for you to read it.
Thanks. Thanks for tuning into this episode. Wherever you're watching or listening, please consider subscribing. And if you have the time, leave a comment. Let me know what you think, what you want to hear more of. I'd really appreciate it. I'll see you in the next episode.